At 5:14 in international waters just 90 miles off Key West, Florida, a stunning incident set off alarms across U.S. Northern Command. On satellite surveillance screens, one of Russia's most advanced 13,000-ton submarines, the Kazan, suddenly disappeared without a trace. Confusion spread fast. Where had it gone, and what was it doing so close to America's front door? At that distance, a submarine like Kazan made every possibility feel dangerously real. Across the Atlantic, Moscow may have believed this move would go unnoticed, certain the Americans would never track them down. But that confidence was badly misplaced. What looked like a bold show of strength was, in reality, a risky gamble. And the U.S. Navy was fully prepared to turn that gamble into a harsh lesson. To understand just how serious this was, you first have to understand the platform itself. The Kazan, a Yasen M-class submarine, represents the peak of modern Russian naval engineering. Stretching 456 feet, it was built for two things above all else: stealth and striking power. If older submarines sounded like motorcycles roaring down a highway, the Kazan moved more like an electric car gliding through the dark. Its vertical launch system carried Zircon hypersonic missiles, weapons capable of reaching speeds near Mach 9. In simple terms, if one were launched toward Florida, the warning window would be brutally short. The moment it entered the Caribbean, Kazan dropped deeper and positioned itself near the thermocline, the layer where warm and cold water meet. That boundary can bend sonar and distort acoustic detection, turning the ocean itself into a shield. At the same time, the submarine went almost silent, shutting down active emissions and slipping into ultra-quiet mode. But the Russians added another layer to the plan. Knowing American surveillance would be on high alert, they placed the destroyer Gorshkov and the tugboat Nikolai Chiker directly above the submarine. The heavy propeller noise from the surface ships created a blanket of acoustic clutter, helping conceal whatever was happening below. The message from Moscow was unmistakable. They wanted Washington to know they could appear close, fast, and without warning. It looked less like a routine deployment and more like a calculated test of escalation. The U.S. Navy responded immediately. At first, the American move seemed almost too obvious. The destroyer USS Donald Cook was sent directly into the area with powerful radar active and its AIS transponder broadcasting clearly. A visible signal that the Russian submarine's disappearance near sensitive waters was being treated as a serious and provocative act. From below, the Russian captain likely looked at that display and assumed the Americans were rattled, still searching, still unsure, still blind. What he did not realize was that the Donald Cook was only the distraction. The real search had already begun from the air. At 3,000 feet, a P-8A Poseidon appeared off-axis, circling wide enough to avoid drawing immediate attention. One by one, it released passive sonar buoys in a broad grid, spaced several nautical miles apart. Together, they formed an invisible acoustic barrier designed to close off Kazan's most likely escape routes. And below the surface, another American hunter was already in place: the fast-attack submarine USS Helena. Data from those sonar buoys fed directly into Helena's combat system. Its job was simple in concept and extremely difficult in practice. Wait silently, stay hidden, and be the final barrier if Kazan slipped through the outer net. The Russian commander, however, had no intention of waiting quietly inside that trap. The instant Kazan's warning systems detected sonar buoy activity, it launched an MG-74 self-propelled acoustic decoy. The device imitated the sound signature of a Yasen-class submarine, accelerating east at 25 knots. The effect was immediate. On the surface, the sonar network lit up with what looked like a confirmed target in motion. Commanders aboard USS Donald Cook, responsible for defending the coastline, could not afford to dismiss it. The destroyer turned and surged east in pursuit. The American screen opened. Down below, Helena's sonar team also detected the movement. Pressure inside the control room rose fast. If the surface fleet was moving and Helena remained still, the submarine risked being left behind while the real target escaped. But Helena's captain, a veteran with sharp instincts, held his hand up and gave a different order: maintain position, stay silent. Something felt wrong. Would a submarine as advanced as Kazan really break away so noisily, so suddenly, and in such a predictable direction? Or was that exactly what the Russians wanted them to believe? It was a huge decision. If he was wrong, Kazan could slip away, and Helena would carry the blame for letting a hostile platform disappear near the U.S. coast. The tension on board was intense. The crew sat in darkness while the rest of the fleet chased the false signal. Then that patience paid off. Because Helena stayed still, its sonar system was able to adapt. The constant noise from Gorshkov had been treated as part of the background, and the software gradually filtered it out. That subtle change made all the difference. While the U.S. surface ships pursued the decoy, Kazan made its real move, peeling away and slipping into the Gulf Stream, the Atlantic's most powerful and acoustically chaotic underwater current. But the moment it separated from the cover of the ships above, the sound pattern changed. Helena caught it. The sonar operator called out that a contact had broken west, and in that instant, Kazan's concealment was compromised. Still, the Gulf Stream created a new problem. Its roar acted like a wall of white noise. Kazan shut down its main propulsion and let the current carry it at 5 knots, blending into the ocean's natural turbulence. Helena's screen turned messy. Background noise surged. Once again, the contact became difficult to isolate. The American captain took another calculated risk. He ordered deployment of a nearly 30,000-foot towed array sonar. It would improve Helena's ability to separate faint sounds from the surrounding chaos, but it came at a cost. With that cable extended, Helena could no longer maneuver aggressively. The submarine had to slow down dramatically. In an instant, a fast-moving predator became something far more limited and exposed. Even so, the array began producing results. A faint transient appeared to the west. Helena turned carefully toward it. Kazan noticed. Its flank array sensors detected subtle pressure changes in the water behind it. The Russian commander knew the pursuit had not ended. He changed tactics again. On Helena, the sonar team suddenly picked up an unusual high-frequency hiss, like a valve venting underwater. Then Kazan's acoustic signature blurred, smeared across the display. The bearing shifted downward. Helena's captain understood immediately. Kazan was flooding ballast tanks and dropping below the thermocline. It was a textbook defensive move. Beneath that thermal boundary, cold water would bend and reflect passive sonar in ways that made tracking far more difficult. Within moments, the signal vanished. The display went dark again. For the second time, the Americans had lost contact. Now the danger reached a new level. Helena was moving slowly, burdened by its towed array, partially blinded by the heat layer. Kazan was hidden beneath the thermal shield, armed and waiting. One wrong decision could flip the entire encounter. The hunter could become the hunted. But Helena's captain knew that simply waiting above the layer would give the initiative away. He made the boldest call of the operation, retrieved the towed array, and dived through the thermocline. Everyone in the command compartment understood what that meant. Crossing from warm water into cold would cause severe sound refraction. For a brief window, Helena would be nearly deaf. They would be descending into uncertainty with no guarantee of what was waiting below. The submarine angled down, 500 feet, 600, 700. The hull groaned under mounting pressure. Then suddenly, the bow pierced through the layer. The distorted picture snapped into focus, and what appeared on the screen froze the room. Kazan was directly ahead, less than 2,000 yards away. In the scale of open ocean submarine warfare, that distance is point blank. Two giants in the dark, almost nose to nose. The Russian commander had made a critical misjudgment. He assumed Helena would not dare follow him below the layer, so he had slowed and prepared to set up an ambush. Instead, the American submarine had come straight through the barrier and arrived almost on top of him. Kazan's warning systems erupted. The Russian captain reacted instantly, ordering a sharp 180-degree turn to face the pursuer head-on. The scenario had now become as serious as it could get. On one side, Kazan opened its torpedo tubes. Helena's sonar team heard the unmistakable sound of flooding tubes, the signature of weapons being readied. On the other side, Helena's weapons officer reported a firing solution with Mk-48 torpedoes prepared. Nearly 30,000 tons of steel, technology, and pressure stood facing each other in complete darkness. No one moved. No one wanted to be the first to make the wrong move. Inside both boats, every second must have felt stretched beyond measure. The American captain stared at the target data. He knew the Russian commander was doing the same. One sudden decision, one misunderstanding, one overreaction, and the entire encounter could spiral beyond control. Then the silence broke. A single ping came from the Russian side. Not an attack signal, not an aggressive strike cue. In the quiet, coded world of submariners, it carried a different meaning. I see you, you see me. We both understand what happens next if this goes any further. Slowly, Kazan closed its torpedo tubes. It turned away, blew ballast, and began to surface on course for Havana. Helena stood down as well. So why didn't the United States force a direct interception? Because by that point, the core objective had already been achieved. During those final moments, when Kazan had shifted into combat posture, Helena's sensors captured a priceless set of data. Acoustic signatures, electronic behavior, and fire control characteristics. In other words, the Russian submarine had exposed some of its most sensitive operational fingerprints. What looked on the surface like a dramatic Russian show of nerve became, beneath the water, an intelligence victory for the United States and NATO. The story ends with Kazan arriving in Havana, celebrated in headlines as the submarine that challenged America near its own waters. But deep below the surface, the crew of USS Helena understood the quieter truth. The real win was not in headlines. It was in the data. permanently recorded and stored for the next encounter. So the next time reports emerge about a Russian submarine disappearing near U.S. waters, the first reaction should not be panic. In many cases, the most important battle is not the one the public sees. It is the one fought silently, with sonar, patience, and information. And one more note, this story is inspired by real events, but it has been dramatized to help illustrate how naval technology, tactics, and military doctrine can work in practice. Some elements are hypothetical by design. The goal here is to explore strategic thinking, technical capability, and the realities of modern naval competition in a way that is both informative and engaging. What do you think about how this encounter played out? Should the U.S. have responded more aggressively, or was this the smartest possible outcome? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into high-stakes naval standoffs.